the purpose of going through multiple processes before a loan is approved is to leave a trail for audit. So it is not a difficult exercise at all for government to do, if government is not able to do that, for an independent institution to do, or parliament, which is mandated by the constitution to ensure oversight over financial dealings of the state. So I call on parliament that it is in their domain. It is part of their oversight report that they need to engage in and report to the people of Ghana. So we should be there, like the Auditor General's report, that at the end of the day, either the Auditor General does it or Parliament does it. So at the end of the financial year or at mid-year, we receive that report from Parliament, and then we all scrutinize and come to terms with the reality whether the government has been transparent in terms of the utilization of debt or not. And that, I think, is the way forward, and we must do that. But before I raise other issues, I also need to add two issues. One, see, when we borrow, we are supposed to engage in both social projects and revenue projects. By social project, I'm talking like schools, hospitals, and other things that people need that is not on commercial basis. Then we are also, as a nation, supposed to invest in revenue projects. By revenue projects, I'm talking about projects that can pay for themselves, especially in the energy sector and the utilities sector. So that is the two kind of investment we're supposed to be making with our borrowing or with our money. Sometimes on the face of it, we may think that social projects like schools, universities, hospitals, etc., may not directly generate revenue. But that is not the way to look at it. They are very important. Apart from that, when you set up a huge hospital in a region, what you have done is that you have activated productivity in the area. Various type of businesses will come around a hospital. Pharmaceutical firm will rally around the hospital. People will be employed. So it is not a useless venture at all. When you spend money to construct, modern hospital, etc., that can focus on specific areas of our health needs. It's very, very important. That is why you cannot invest your money only in revenue projects. So that is another important thing that I believe we should consider. Then you are raising the issue of debt forgiveness. I think we also need to credit these international institutions such as the World Bank, IMF, and the rest. They have been with us. They knew our situation when we entered into the HIPIC initiative. They knew how they forgiving our debt, the write-off debts, etc. They brought us into a certain level. Debt to GDP ratio was very, very low. As soon as we exited in the middle of 2006, what was the first thing that we did? We went to borrow. At that time, $750 million was not a joke. We went straight to that, and we were telling everybody that in Sub-Saharan Africa, we are the only country that has been very successful to go to the market and to take a commercial loan in the form of a Eurobond of $750 million. But when you are managing an economy, there is something we call fiscal buffer for the economy. And if you look at 2012 up to 2016, the managers of the economy were building fiscal buffers. You heard about contingency fund, which have been in the constitution for a very long time. It was activated so that some money from the oil sector is being put in the contingency fund to cater for certain important happenings within our economy. You heard about sinking fund. In fact, proper debt management is supposed to account for sinking fund in the arrangement, so that by the time you get to maturity of some of the debt, you have accumulated some money in that sinking fund to write off or to amortize the debt completely. We were not doing anything like that in the past, but I think in the middle of between 2012 thereabout, a sinking fund was established to accumulate funds to retire debt in the country. That $750 million was a 10-year bond. It was fully amortized in April 2017 using the sinking fund that was created. And since the money was taken from the sinking fund to amortize the $750 million, we have disengaged the sinking fund. No money is going to the sinking fund. Therefore, buffer for this economy have been reduced to zero. So all the borrowings we are doing, we don't have any buffer accompanying those borrowing, so that when we get to maturity of some of them, we can quickly, with ease, amortize them using the sinking fund. We have cleared it. Now, when we come to the petroleum sector, where we have set up different funds, stabilization fund, that has been capped several times to be able to cater for some of these things. We have depleted it so much now. It is now not viable because very little is left there. We have been making an attempt to even take off the heritage fund. So you can see that the buffer for the economy have been destroyed. In fact, for buffer for infrastructure investment was also created by the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. The monies that have been put there from the seed money that was put up, huge amount of money was consumed, and no money is being serviced into that fund to cater for infrastructure needs of the country. So as we speak now, fiscal buffer for the economy is very weak, and there is nothing for the economy to be falling on in terms of how it is being run, in terms of managing debt, etc. And that is a huge risk that the economy of Ghana is now subjected to. Now, sometimes when I make certain statements, people who are managing the economy don't appreciate it and they become angry. The truth of the matter is that the government that we have now in the Fourth Republic has not showcased any history of complete management of the resources, and for that matter, the debt of the country. And I want to demonstrate. From 2001, the reason why the debt management was okay, and there was huge investment in social infrastructure, and for that matter, what we term now as social intervention, was because of the HIPIC initiative. And one of the HIPIC condition of the HIPIC initiative was that debt that we are forgiving you, debt relief and the rest, to utilize it, you need to come up with an investment plan in your social sector before monies will be released for utilization. So government was forced to come up with a lot of social intervention schemes for which monies were released as a condition to invest in those things. So you realize that had it not been because of the IMF intervention through the HIPIC initiative, there is no way we can see the true potential of those who manage the economy at that time in terms of managing the debt of the country. And they have demonstrated it quite clearly that just after the exit of the IMF, the first thing we did was to go to that huge borrowing. After that huge borrowing, by 2008, when they were exiting power, they made it very clear that if we didn't sell Ghana Telecom, even payment of salary would not be possible. Now, come again to 2017. Before they came to power, the NDC already engaged the IMF. And when they came, they look at the IMF program, it was helping to recorrect the fiscal situation of the country, including debt management and management of the development of prices in terms of inflation. Inflation peaked at 19% and was reducing within that short period of time up to 15.4% before the new government took over. They increased the period for the IMF program. The IMF supported them in a lot of things. Then, as soon as IMF left, the picture changed again. So we have not yet seen when this government stand on its own and manage the economy of Ghana fully, as we have seen for others. And so when we are seeing some of these things, it should not be surprising situation for anyone, because we are not seeing the true picture. From 2001, the picture was not there. The government then didn't manage the economy on its own. It was on the back of the IMF. From 2017 up to 2019, this government didn't manage the economy on its own. It was on the back of an IMF program. So this should be taken account of. So if we are trusting in the ability to manage debt of this country, we have not seen that in history yet. Now, why would the World Bank not be comfortable about the request to forgive debt? Because they have known us. They have learned the lesson that if debt is forgiven, it only gives us space to go back to the indiscipline in terms of borrowing, without using the borrowing to develop our country in a manner that is required. Therefore, where will you borrow from 2017 up to 2019? In fact, even in February of 2020, when COVID-19 was not reported in Ghana, we went to borrow again through bond. So why do we accumulate all these things? We didn't invest it the way we are supposed to invest. Then within 1 year, that peak emerged. We are not even asking of the borrowings that we did in the peak period. I'm talking about 2020, but we are just asking open-ended debt forgiveness. Nobody will do that. Now again, let's look at the composition of our debt. You realize that for a very long time, and especially from 2015, when we decided to do massive investment in key sectors such as the energy sector, and given the fact that we have been declared as lower middle income country, we have no access to concessionary borrowing with moratorium of repayment, etc. So we were forced to go to the market to borrow at commercial rate. So a chunk of our borrowing that we are talking right now, anytime we are talking about borrowing, they say Eurobond, then they go to the market and borrow. And then the easier term is oversubscribe. And some of them will rejoice over the oversubscription to the point that we even ate kinky on the borrowing. But we don't tell the people of Ghana that the structure of bond by private investors and institutional investors across the world is based on coupon payment. And the coupon is structured. Let's assume that all our borrowings is based on coupon, annual coupon payment. What it means is that if you borrow for 3 years, at the end of the first year, you are paying your coupon. In other words, I would say you are paying your interest on the debt. So if you use all the money to eat kinky, you are going to pay on something you have not utilized. If you borrow the money for 15 years, and it is an annual coupon, it means that at the end of the first year, you start paying, when the money has not even been invested in anything and it started yielding fruit. That is the reason. And remember, I said that you borrow against future revenue. You have not yet utilized the money to start generating revenue, but you have started paying. It is the same problem that our SME sector is facing in Ghana. They go to the bank and borrow. Maybe if they are lucky, they give them 1 month moratorium. And after that, they start paying the monthly interest. But when some of them have not even imported goods to put to the factory to manufacture anything, but they start paying the interest. It is the same thing happening to Ghana. Therefore, if the World Bank director or whoever is saying that, please be careful about non-concessionary loan, be careful about commercial loan, it is because of these inherent challenges of bonds. That is why they are giving this advice. So all this issue of coming to the people of Ghana, going on radio station and television, and sometimes organizing press conference, our bond is successful, it has been oversubscribed, etc. And then we compare it against the time that the country was in difficulty, and for that matter, it has to reflect in the coupon rate. We compare it. Then we refuse to compare our borrowing rate, the rate that we got with that of Rwanda. We fail to compare it with Ivory Coast because those rates were far, far lower than ours. We forget that there is an obligation to pay coupon. And that is why there's this rampant discussion about refinancing that the government have been talking about, debt reprofiling. What it means is that because we go for about 5-year bond and we are paying the coupon every year, there is pressure on us. So we need to go and borrow and cater for part of the interest of the series of bonds that we have actually accumulated. And the new borrowing, we are using just about 30% to do something meaningful for the country. The rest, I don't know where it goes, and part of it will go for interest payment that is due as a result of the structure of bond. So I think that is the reason why the World Bank is advising government, please, you can see that this commercial borrowing, this non-concessional borrowing is creating problem for you. Find an innovative way of financing your project. That is the reason why that advice was given. And I believe we need to start thinking around how we build our debt portfolio so that we are not entangled. Bond is actually entangling the country in terms of the utilization and the repayment commitment within a short period of time. We went for $1 billion from the IMF for the purposes of COVID-19. We were giving moratorium of 5 years, and that borrowing was even at 0 rate. It gives us space to do a lot of things. Now, when we come to COVID-19, that the government is using to ask for debt forgiveness, remember, there is a very clear budget that was approved by Parliament as to how much government of Ghana is supposed to borrow for COVID purposes. And that money has been borrowed. That money has been borrowed. So it is not all the borrowing that we have that is COVID related. And that is why disclosure about our debt is very important. So if our president goes out to ask for debt forgiveness, it is not being asked based on proper analysis of our debt. Maybe we are thinking that we can use COVID-19 for some gain to go to the international community and start speaking, and that they will concede and forgive us. HIPIC was a program. It was a gift to the developing world that was actually ravaged by debt and fiscal problems at that time, with low commitment to social infrastructure for the health and development of the people. That gift is not available at this time. We should look at our debt, and we shouldn't think that one benefit of COVID-19 is to go and ask for forgiveness.
Well, let me ask you this question before I move on to Conrad on this matter, because I'm guessing that one of the requirements you're supposed of being in this situation with the debts ballooning is what we have seen in the budget, where taxes are being imposed one left, right, and center. And so that means that there is an obligation on us to take a second look at the way we act. So what do you then make, Prof, of this whole thing about the president actually now living a life of luxury, even in the air, £15,000 on an airplane just to fly around the world? Should that worry, especially because the place where he went to ask for debt forgiveness, he used the same luxurious flight and flew there in the same flight? Should we be looking at the lifestyle, and how should we be looking at this whole exposure of what the president, the kind of life the president is living in the midst of this difficulty?
Well, actually, that downgraded the efficacy of the call for debt forgiveness. That actually downgraded the efficacy of the call for debt forgiveness. Because what we know is that in times of crisis, we see total submission to discipline, fiscal discipline from the top before it translates to the ordinary Ghanaian. So if the president is not willing to demonstrate that kind of discipline and sacrifice in the face of availability of presidential jet, which I'm not sure is up to 10 years, in the face of availability of relatively new presidential jet in Ghana, there is no reason why the president will engage in private jet and actually incur that expenses, that cost for the people of Ghana, and believe that those people will listen to the president and take it seriously. I do not think so. So the point I'm making is, in times of crisis, the best anybody would do who is at the helm of affairs is to demonstrate the highest level of fiscal discipline. And we are not seeing that.
Well,